Welcome to the 2024 Phish Studies Conference Video Archive. The Mockingbird Foundation is thrilled and proud to present this groundbreaking video series on our YouTube channel. It continues our tradition of celebrating music education. Since 1996, we have been an all-volunteer nonprofit organization dedicated to broadening access to educational opportunities for youth in music and the musical arts. Please visit mbird.org to donate today.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Yeah. What is that? Thank you. Thank you. My God. It's like Sunday morning, day 3 of the conference. You're tired or something? Okay, welcome to the panel, Left in the Now with the Wondrous Glow, Philosophy and Spirituality. We're going to do all 3 presentations, and then we'll have questions, comments only at the very end. We're going to start with Noah Lehrman. Noah is a New York City-based musician, Judaic scholar, and critical minerals expert. The Economist magazine called him, are you ready for this? And I quote, likely the only person in history to perform at the Jewish Grateful Dead Festival and advise Congress on resource security. We also have next presenting Jay Boda, who is an entrepreneur specializing in e-commerce operations and branding. As a writer, he explores philosophical and religious themes in popular culture. And Ben Tertin. Dr. Ben Tertin serves as an editing scholar for the Bible Project, an animation studio and education tech nonprofit. During his free time, Ben will either be on tour or out exploring the Pacific Northwest with his wife and 2 kids, or in his backyard making unnecessarily dangerous rope swings. I want to hang out in your backyard. Sounds fun. So we will begin with Noah and a presentation called "And the Helping Friendly Book Will Plant the Seed, Crews, Jews, and Exegesis." Welcome.
Thank you. Is this thing on? Actually, no, I'll do it this way. Thank you, Oren. Thank you to Stephanie Jenkins, the program committee, the School of History, Philosophy, and Religion, and all who put together this amazing event. It's a dream come true to be here and present, but if a dream it's true, you saw it through, Stephanie, so thank you again. I must say, I feel a little weird that I have a new favorite Phish weekend, and Phish wasn't even here for it. So come on, guys. Next year, come out, please. Thank you. This conference is the ultimate after-party conversation, if slightly less woke than I'm used to. It beautifully demonstrates the myriad ways people relate to Phish, and through Phish to one another, from the music itself, to the material culture around the band, to the lyrics, to the community, and more. The titles of presentations alone show how Phish lyrics can be recontextualized to subjects ranging from economics to healthcare to law. Indeed, there are many ways to experience Phish. For some, it's personal. For some, communal. Many regard Phish as their spiritual community. For some, it resonates with their cultural identity. And for some, Phish resonates with their own organized faith tradition. Jewish presence within the Phish community has been noted by the fan base and both mainstream and Jewish media since the 1.0 era. In 1999, Salon magazine published the article Fishers for Men by Felix Wickman on an organized Jewish presence on Phish tour. And Jewish publication Tikkun discussed Jews and Phish in Lawrence Bush's article Drugs and Jewish Spirituality. That was then, this is now. This paper explores conceptual parallels between Phish lyrics and Jewish texts, and how principles espoused in each manifest through similar modes, as ethics arise amongst both Phish crews and Jewish sages. Juxtaposition of these texts and traditions furthers our understanding of each, and points toward a shared metaphysical appreciation of existential experience. We'll ponder how concepts found in both Phish lyrics and Jewish texts manifest in each community, as well as in Phish's music itself. We'll see how members in both communities live in relationship to texts, and how friendship and its inherent obligations and opportunities are central to those texts, metaphysics and music. So central, it's in the Helping Friendly Books title. We'll further develop some ideas from my Phish on Shabbos lectures delivered at the Blues for Challah festival at Isabella Friedman Jewish Retreat Center in 2014 and 2015. And my Torah on Torah chapter from This Is Your Song Too, Phish and Contemporary Jewish Identity, edited by Ariella Worden Greenfield, who couldn't be here, and our distinguished moderator, Oren Crow-Zeldin, so to whom I send huge thanks. I started attending Phish shows in 1993, early in the blossoming of 1.0 lot culture, and was immediately struck by the playful use of language, not only within Phish lyrics, but by the fans as well. Those were the days where, in addition to the old school rainbow logo shirts, we'd see early examples of the wordplay and puns core to the lot ethos and aesthetic. Most iconic was the Glide Tide logo shirt, created by Sean Waldo Knight, who started Glide Clothing that year. Soon I was introduced to the first organized Jewish community I encountered on Phish Tour, the original Gefilte Phish crew organized by Rabbi Skeist, the subject of the Salon article just referenced. The Gefilte Phish crew was recognized by their llama stickers, which consisted of the Hebrew script for the Hebrew word lama, which meaning why, with a question mark, and the letters forming the shape of a llama, the animal. This was a year after Picture of Nectar came out with llama as lead track. I don't have that original sticker, however, this slide gives a similar effect. And just to be clear, that's where the Hebrew comes in. Here we see wordplay, sound, and form intersect with both Jewish and Phish references to create new contexts and new meanings. Such engagement with texts was there from the start. As we'll see, both Phish lyrics and Jewish texts are reinterpreted outside of their original narrative, some through the use of phonetic shifts and similarities to create new readings, as both communities take shared texts and recontextualize them within the substance of their own lives. Entering a show, faced with a choice of security lines, some crewmate will inevitably spout, "Left is where I always turn." When a Wook loses his flip-flops, he's chastised, "Whatever you do, take care of your shoes." And when a perpetually tardy friend has yet to show up late and stumble in, the rest of the crew bemoans, "Still waiting." After a soggy show during the Baker's Dozen run, my large crew split up, one group heading north back to the crib and the other south for an after-party. When those heading home emerged from our uptown subway stop, precipitation was upon us, and we spontaneously burst out, "Still raining." Later that night, when we all reconvened and reconnected, the after-party group told us when they got downtown, they had heard a group of Phish heads screaming, "Still raining." "That was us," we shouted. Of course, in reality, it was a completely different group of rando Phish heads in a totally different part of Manhattan. But they were also twisting the same text to meet their similar situation. Fitting appropriate verses into the experience of one's community is a pursuit of both a Phish head with their crew and a rabbi. The Talmud, the originally oral interpretation of the Torah's 5 books of Moses, codified in its current form, circa the 2nd through 5th century CE, largely endeavors to find meanings for Torah verses in novel and unexpected contexts and circumstances. An example using phonetic shift to find new meanings, similar to what we saw in Still Raining, is found in a section of the Talmud reprinted in the Sabbath prayer book. That's the original, and that's the translation. Rabbi Elazar said on behalf of Rabbi Hananiah, "Torah scholars increase peace in the world, as it is said," this is the original quote, "and all your children will be students of the divine name, and your children will have abundant peace. Do not read the words as banayich, your children, but rather bonayich, your builders." A slight phonetic shift, and the Talmud changes a Torah verse about children to one about teachers, our metaphorical builders. "Don't read this, but rather that" is a common exegetical phrase in the Talmud. These kinds of wordplay and recontextualization to find new meanings occurs in both Phish and Judaism, and at their intersection. For example, Still Waiting has added meaning for some Jewish fans. Daily longing for a coming messianic age is a fundamental part of Orthodox Judaism, according to the medieval philosopher, physician, and theologian Maimonides. One subset of ultra-Orthodox Jews, known for their messianic ardor, have created this flag to self-identify. The Hebrew word means Messiah. Meanwhile, some Jewish fans wear this shirt from Avinu Malkeinu Designs while they wait and while they dance. Similarly, the Glide Tide shirt, by bringing a Phish text into a seemingly incongruous yet familiar context, brought with it a touch of the numinous. Rereading through phonetic shift, intentional or otherwise, also lies behind the Mondegreen concept of misheard, misinterpreted, and misunderstood lyrics, for which Phish's upcoming festival is named. Even a Jewish band member finds meaning in Phish lyrics outside of their contexts, as Mike Gordon described in Richard Gere and Phish's canonical 1.0 volume, The Phish Book from 1998. Mike, to be brutally honest, I don't know a lot of our lyrics. I should concentrate on the words more than I do, but most of the time I'm thinking groove. Certain words seep through as emotional triggers for me. Our lyrics contain many emotional triggers for me, feelings, a specific memory, or a sentimental rush. Even for Mike, the emotional meaning and impact of Phish lyrics lie outside of their original lyrical contexts. The Torah is a text so central to Judaism and Jewish culture that Jews are known as the people of the book. Within Phish's song catalog, sacred texts are also central to a community. While parallels between lines, themes, and maxims of Torah, Talmud, and Phish lyrics can be found throughout the band's broad oeuvre, explicit plot parallels also can be found between the Book of Exodus and Phish's Gamehenge cycle. Moses, born a Jew but raised as an Egyptian in Pharaoh's palace before his self-imposed exile to Midian, returns as an outsider to become the Jews' redeemer. So too, in the Gamehenge cycle, does the hero Colonel Forbin enter the land of lizards both as an outsider and as potential redeemer. Moses ascends Mount Sinai to receive the Torah as the Jews' spiritual guide and moral text in the final step of the process of freedom from Egyptian bondage and a return to self-determination on their ancestral land. Likewise, Colonel Forbin ascends a mountain to receive the lizard's sacred text, the Helping Friendly Book, written by the divine lawgiver Iculus to free the lizards from slavery to the cruel tyrant Wilson. In both contexts, the sacred texts are revelations guiding their people to form responsible relationships and ethical interactions as the ultimate escape from slavery. Such moral societies are presented as the purpose of revelation and the true foundation of freedom. Perhaps Phish hints at these connections by pairing and transitioning Gamehenge's opening song, The Man Who Stepped Into Yesterday, into their cover version of the traditional Jewish liturgical Avinu Malkeinu, and back again. But, as I wrote in my Torah and Torah chapter from last summer's This Is Your Song Too, Phish and Contemporary Jewish Identity, expanding beyond the Helping Friendly Book, the entire Phish songbook can serve as a sacred text and communal guide for their fans in the quest for transcendence. Ultimately, Phish fans and Jews live in relationship to and dialogue with text, be it Jews and Torah, Phish heads and lyrics, or even Gamehenge's lizards and the Helping Friendly Book. These words were made manifest this past YMSG. Initially, the Helping Friendly Book was a sacred text within the text of Phish's lyrics, written at the start of their career. Yet for many, the subsequent 40 years of collective Phish lyrics function as a transcendental text interwoven with the interpretation of life experience. This was concretized by the paper confetti pages containing lyrics from across their oeuvre dropped on the audience on 12/31/23 after the Mockingbird drone ascended with the Helping Friendly Book. I personally collected, this literally and physically integrated the fans, their dancing, and their friendships with Phish's lyrics spanning their career. I personally collected 53 separate quotes at MSG on New Year's Eve. And with the help of online spreadsheets from Ed Byrne and Scott Puglisi, along with pictures posted on social media and others sent to me in response to my openly posted requests, over 170 distinct pages were dropped, collected, and documented by fans. These include lyrics from Gamehenge songs with sheet music, lyrics from songs throughout their career without music, non-lyrical Phish quotes and references, and one other we shall discuss later. 10 quotes from those Helping Friendly book pages contain the word friend. 2 more are from the song My Friend, My Friend. The quotes we'll compare with sacred texts from the Jewish tradition will be drawn from Helping Friendly book pages dropped and collected that night. 2 sets of the most poignant and well-known axioms from both traditions center on friendship. First, let's examine keep what's important, but know who's your friend, and make for yourself a teacher and acquire for yourself a friend, from Pirkei Avos in the Mishnah on Torah. Obviously, the Phish quote is from Theme from the Bottom. It's a Jewish principle to progress upwards in levels of holiness, including when discussing or listing items, ideas, or entities. Both quotes build to the ultimate imperative to have and know friends. Friend is a category beyond importance in theme and beyond teacher in the Talmud. And our relationship with our friends can take us to places even our most important and revered teachers cannot. At Phish, we learn a lot from the band. We learn a lot from the music and the lyrics and from the thoughts that flow through our heads as we dance. In Judaism, we learn a lot from the Torah. We learn a lot from our rabbis and our texts. We learn a lot from our rituals and our practices and from the emotions their performance invokes. In both these traditions, the knowledge and experience we gain from these sources of instruction and revelation are crucially important, but they are not the most important source. After learning from our sages and our songsters, we are told we must have and truly know our friends, for it is our relationship with them that takes us places and teaches us things that no book and no band can. A friend in our relationship with that recognized, respected, and loved other brings us out of our own selves. It is imperative upon us to gain and maintain the opportunity for transcendence a friend brings, an experience which, now I know that there are a lot of distinguished professors here, so please forgive me, which friendship offers via a transpersonal experience even the most important teacher does not afford. The obligations of friendship, crews, and communities can also be a challenge for individuals, especially in the midst of deeply personal experiences. Friends can be both our supports and our foils in life and on tour. And like Phish Jams, friends can be a unique vehicle for both personal and interpersonal growth. Maimonides, the rabbinic sage, the Bartenura, held that due to its spiritual benefits, friendship should be cultivated even at great effort and personal expense. Hopefully this is comforting advice for friendships cultivated on tour, given the cost of tickets these days. Friends and friendships are at the forefront of central texts in both Phish and Jewish canons. As we shall see, when pushed to distill the entire Torah to its purest essence, the great Talmudic sage Hillel responded with an axiom about how to treat one's friends. Friendship is also so central to the transcendent Phish experience that, as we've said, it's in the Helping Friendly book's title. Trey Anastasio states, Phish in part tours for the sake of bringing friends together. Quote, ideally, the point of music is community. Musicians are simply channels to link the audience to the music and to each other. Now let's examine the significance of negative construction in another pair of well-known quotes from both traditions that center on friends. Everything's Right contains the famous 3.0 injunction to try not to step on your best friend's feet. When the sage Hillel is challenged to summarize the entire Torah while standing on one foot, he replies, what is hateful to you, do not do to your friend. That is the entire Torah, and the rest is commentary. To your friend, Hillel says, the Hebrew word used is chaver, meaning friend, not another, not your neighbor. That's the whole Torah, and the rest is commentary. Thus, Hillel tells us that the divinely revealed Torah's essential purpose is to inspire interpersonal ethical action amongst friends. Hillel's phrasing here is significant. Elsewhere, the Torah tells us to love your neighbor as yourself, an active or positive imperative telling us what we should do. Here, distilling proper interpersonal conduct to its most urgent and quintessential form, Hillel uses a restraining or negative imperative, telling us what not to do, what smart people don't do. So yes, we can love others, but can we also restrain ourselves for them as well? Phish echoes this approach with their moral maxim, try not to step on your best friend's feet. It's an ethic we strive to fulfill literally and figuratively when dancing ecstatically besides our best friends at shows. In both Hillel's words and in Everything's Right, the negative language is significant. Torah goes from love your neighbor as yourself to the Talmud's what is hateful to you, do not do to your friend. From moral and ethical action to moral and ethical restraint. Phish goes from 1.0's, take care, whatever you do, take care of your shoes, to 3.0's, try not to step on your best friend's feet. From caring for one's own souls through action to respecting the soul of another through our own self-restraint. In Jewish cosmology, as part of the process of creation, God contracted the divine self to allow space for human free will, consciousness, and independent agency. We follow in the divine image when we limit our own ego and dancing bodies to make room for others. Both dancing at shows and throughout daily life, others expand where we contract, and vice versa. Phish and all the opportunities and challenges tour affords, the transformative dance floor, lines for entrance, drinks and bathrooms, after parties, late-night hotel hangouts, and morning after hotel bills are some of the best venues for putting these principles into practice. As the ancient Wook proverb goes, perhaps on tour, the friends we meet along the way are the dankest ground scores of all. As we learn from the Helping Friendly book's text, the trick is to surrender to the flow. But that comes after its eponymous injunction to be helpful and friendly. The ecstasy of revelation must be balanced with self-restraint. This creative tension and unity between these two seemingly binary oppositions, whoa, there we go. It's my recreation of New Year's Eve, right there. Thank you. I'll be here all weekend, thank you. Weddings and bar mitzvahs, anyway. As we learn from the Helping Friendly book's text, the trick is to surrender to the flow, but that comes after its eponymous injunction to be helpful and friendly. The ecstasy of revelation must be balanced with self-restraint. This creative tension and unity between these two seemingly binary oppositions lies at the core and genesis of the metaphysical universe. It is also central to the relationship between friends, to the relationship between the audience and the band, and to the musical mysticism on stage among band members, as they flow through forms, leave space for one another, and spontaneously improvise structures. The dialectic between restraint and flow manifests in these ethical axioms and in both Jewish metaphysics and Phish's musical improvisation. In the dynamic creative tension between them lies the beauty and splendor of balance and integration. It is through this process that creation flourishes. We can read some of these concepts into the language of the Helping Friendly book. The Helping Friendly book, it seemed, possessed the secret knowledge of eternal joy and never-ending splendor. The trick was to surrender to the flow. The splendor of flow and surrender. What is surrender but the self-restraint of one's own will to allow for another? We've spoken about the concept of self-restraint to make space for others. We saw it play a unique role in creation through the concept of divine creative contraction, known as Tzimtzum. According to the Jewish tradition, God contracted and limited God's own self to allow space for the world to exist in all its diversity and multiplicity. Through the contraction of Tzimtzum, the divine will transcends itself in order to create space for others. This is the Jewish mystics' attempt to understand creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing, the Odyssey, creation of evil, creation of the many from the one, and the cognitive, emotional, physical, and artistic diversity of the world. Perhaps it is also akin to collective musical performance. The concept of flow and restraint, even to the point of contraction, lies at the heart of Phish's creative musical process and improvisation. Trey spoke in 1997 about how such a dynamic was key to their development and musical growth in that crucial peak 1.0 period. Trey, you can't hear what's going on without leaving space in the music. I can't communicate without space. It's more powerful than notes. Nervous energy causes overplaying, which comes off as nothing but a series of notes no one can follow. You need space to join, to meld. Then, in reference to the 1997 Denver shows, I'd never heard anything quite like it before. We had this really cool thing going on where my delayed loops were out of sync with John Fishman's groove. Phish was laying down these heavy, fat grooves and filling in a lot fewer holes, which allowed Mike to come forward. 97, after all, was the year of Mike, who came into his own. All of a sudden, everybody started telling me, I've never been able to hear the bass before, but now I can, and it's great. I don't think it has much to do with his bass sound, however. It has more to do with how he's playing, and it always has. The band created more space. He started playing more sparsely, and every note has a chance to develop in a huge room when he's playing more sparsely. It was no mystery to me. Making space for the other in creation, community, composition, performance, improvisation, and harmony. We know from the Gamehenge New Year's Eve midnight drop that the Helping Friendly book contains not only Phish lyrics, but also Phish's instrumental music. That's Landlady. A surprising number of Phish tribute keyboard players could not identify it because it's the guitar part. Anyway. And don't tell anyone I said it. I'm glad this is not being recorded. Please still hire me as your drummer. Thank you. Anyway. And in the music itself, and in those who dance to it, we can find the key concepts that underlie both Phish and Jewish texts and ethics. Indeed, for me, the experience of Phish's music is akin to my experience of Torah. As I wrote in This Is Your Song Too, when I'm dancing with my crew at shows, the only word to describe the thoughts flowing through me is Torah. As I dance, the music and lights engage my senses, and my mind opens to inspired interpretations of quotes and concepts from Jewish texts and how they reflect and integrate with one another, as well as with the circumstances and relationships in my own life. Like Phish's famous group improvisation, it is an exercise in the creative synthesis of free-flowing inspiration and the structures of communal interplay. The creative tension of seemingly binary oppositions held in equilibrium, sound and silence, left hand and right hand, melody and rhythm, tension and release, expansion and contraction, have for millennium been at the heart of the human process of making meaning and making music, and ultimately, transcending, integrating, and unifying the self and the other. The Talmud, conceived as the oral revelation from Sinai, traditionally opens with the story of a group of young revelers after a drunken wedding. Elsewhere, the Talmud relates that atop Mount Sinai, there was a wedding canopy and the sounds of music at the time the Torah was given. This past New Year's Eve, in the halls of Madison Square Garden, during Phish's first set break, I literally witnessed Orthodox Jewish wedding blessings being celebrated, yes, drunkenly, before the set in which Phish would reveal the story of the Helping Friendly book for the first time in 30 years, and in its most physical form to date. From quotes and context to wordplay and world-making, from the way we played together on stage and on the rails, to weddings and revelation that herald transcendence, we see much of what the Talmud and other Jewish texts have taught for millennium made manifest at Phish. Long may we also see what the Helping Friendly book, the band, and their lyricists have been writing about for the past 4 decades become manifest in us fans as we try not to step on our best friend's feet. Rodeo! Thank you.
And then we'll have time. You heard.
Good morning. Let's see here. Oops. Nope. No, that's not good. Hold on. All right. Just making sure. Sorry. There we go. All right. These. I don't think these are keeping up with each other, so I'm going to do a double click here. All right. So, good morning. My name is Jay, and I'm here to talk about one element of the philosophy found in Phish. So my 3-year-old son asks me, "Daddy, why do you love the Phish band so much?" And I tell him that Phish makes sure that I'm thinking about the right things. Phish makes sure that the important stuff stays top of mind for me. And like how to work slides. So what I want to talk about today is what I see as that important stuff, what it is for me. What I think Phish is doing is providing us with a relatively unified philosophy through their lyrics. And I think that that philosophy tracks very closely to the ancient Greek philosophy of Stoicism. And what I want to focus on today is what that goal looks like, which I am going to continue to struggle with the way this deck is set up here. So I'm going to let Seneca, the ancient Stoic philosopher, explain this for us. Why Phish is doing this in music, why they've chosen to use that medium rather than a traditional philosophic medium. So Seneca says, "It is easy enough to arouse in a listener a desire for what is honorable. Nature has laid the foundations or sown the seeds of the virtues. Imagine how much more likely it is when such things are being said by a philosopher, interspersing passages of sound advice with lines of poetry calculated to deepen their hold. The constricting requirements of verse give one's meaning all the greater force. The same things stated in prose are listened to with less attention and have much less impact." So the short answer is that we get the message better when it comes to us through music than when it comes to us through philosophy. I'm going to try to do one thing. All right. So a couple of caveats as I continue to bounce between this. So a couple of caveats that I have for you. There's way more philosophy in Phish. So this is just one lens, and it's relatively reductionist. Also, the lyrics I'm going to put up in front of you today have many other valuable interpretations. The lyrics are just a small selection. The hardest part about this was cutting down. Also, I'm suggesting that Phish has a general intentionality, not that they're literally sitting here saying, "Oh, well, Seneca said this, so we're going to rephrase it that way." That would really make me happy, but I don't think that's what's happening here. But I will note that the philosopher's name Epictetus sounds a lot like Iculus. I'm also going to have to gloss over Stoic history and thinkers and details about that. We don't have time for that today. I'm also going to take for granted that Stoicism works as a practical philosophy for how to live life. I believe that it is that. You can take it or leave it as you will, but I'm going to take for granted that it's pretty functional. I also think you're going to find that this sounds like other philosophies you might be familiar with, positive psychology, Buddhism, things like that. I think that practical philosophies that teach us how to live a good life have an awful lot in common. They cross streams a lot, and Phish and Stoicism are no different. They're just part of that. I'm also not pretending that I've got anything all figured out. As a practical philosophy, this is about practicing, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not sharing any of this like, "Trust me, it works, I've done it all, and all sage-like up here." No, not at all. Making mistakes every single day and practicing to try to get somewhere with it, and Phish and Stoicism are what are helping me do that. So, a brief overview. So I'm assuming that after this weekend, I'm quite confident we're all familiar with the Phish side of this. I'm focused on the goals here today. So as we just heard in Noah's wonderful presentation, the Phish's goal is arguably to spread the ancient secrets of eternal joy and never-ending splendor. And Stoicism's goal is to teach people to live the good life. I think these track quite closely to one another. So the goal, I'm going to let Phish speak for themselves. The four of us, where we came from, everything we learned came from a book, a special book, a magic book, a book filled with so much stuff, crammed on every page, things, thoughts, feelings, love, hate, war, hunger, salvation, happiness, flowers, philosophy that can make you live today if you just picked up a book. So what are our standards for this philosophy that we're after? I would argue that they're mental tranquility, equanimity, and also happiness, which we can think of as serenity or gladness. I don't know if you're after those things. I know that I'm after those things. They make my life better. And this is what Stoicism was after. And I think a large part of what Phish is telling us is that we can and should be after these things as well. So let's contrast Seneca, the first century Stoic philosopher, and Phish. So Seneca says, literally in an essay entitled On the Tranquility of the Mind, our inquiry then is directed at how the mind should proceed always on a steady and favorable course, may have good intentions towards itself, and may take pleasure in regarding its states, and have no interruptions mar this joy, but remain in a peaceful condition, at no time raising itself up or casting itself down. This will be tranquility. And Phish says, when you're ready to step up into the next realm of living, a higher realm, when you're ready to live in peace and tranquility, when you're ready to leave all of your worldly problems behind, you'll listen to us. So a couple of terms I've put up here. I'm not going to go over each of these. They're going to appear in the presentation, but I'm not going to use them over casually. These terms I'm sharing because we don't have great comparable ones in English that really get all the connotations. And so I just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to see them. The only one I'm going to point out specifically is the logos. So the logos is kind of this governing principle, universal direction. For some people, this is nature. Maybe it's God or the gods. It could be reason and rationality. I kind of like to think of it as the thing behind the curtain, or in fishier terms, there must be something more than this, just kind of all I can really be sure about. So let's jump in to the foundational ideas. So we're going to start with these foundational ideas and messages that Phish and Stoicism is bringing us, and we are going to look at practices that we can, if we internalize, I think that we can really benefit from them. So let's take a look at another Iculus narration quote. We've been for 30 years just trying to get our message across to you all. That's what we do up there, you know, through the music. We have a message, and we hope that you're hearing it and feeling it, the message. When we started this band, we said, let's start a band so we can get the message across. So our first foundational idea is this too shall pass. This is the universal law of impermanence. And I believe that the more you remind yourself of this, the easier all of life becomes. You better get ready. You know a change is coming soon. This applies to the good and the bad. When it applies to the bad, it helps us get through things more easily, knowing that they will pass. It will end. And when we apply it to the good, it teaches us to live in the present and savor the present moment. So I'm going to offer you a practice for each of these foundational ideas. Take it or leave it, but I've found it to be very helpful. I think Phish is telling us the same, and certainly the Stoics are. So this is about choosing your reactions. Athenodorus was a Stoic advisor to the Emperor Augustus. And the last thing he said to Augustus before he left his service was, whenever you get angry, the emperor was known for having a temper, he said, whenever you get angry, I want you to recite all the letters of the alphabet before you say or do anything. And the idea here was to force the emperor to lengthen his to lengthen the time, his reaction time, between stimulus and response, because he knew that just any amount of time passing would diminish the emperor's anger. He knew that that anger would pass and that the emperor would then be more likely to act in a more thoughtful way. And if that language of stimulus and response sounds familiar, it's probably you're recognizing it from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, the ideas that helped him get through the Holocaust and concentration camps. They're effective ideas. So, our next foundational idea is remember death, memento mori. So, think about the song titles: Waking Up Dead, Running Out of Time, Death Don't Hurt Very Long, and the essence of what grind is doing and trying to convey to us. So, why should we be thinking about death? Phish is constantly talking about death. The first reason is so that we stop fearing it. We have a habit of suppressing ideas about it because we're scared of it, but we need to confront it. The second reason is that it allows us to not waste the life that we have. And when we think about death, we confront death, we grow used to the idea, we truly appreciate the time that we have to be alive. And the practice that I want to suggest to all of you is to consider a physical reminder. Stoics would often carry some sort of medallion around with them that said memento mori, so that they were constantly reminded of this idea. You can also consider getting something like a calendar that displays the weeks of your life. Along those lines, I recommend a book, 4,000 Weeks, which really gets to the heart of the matter, that we all only have about 4,000 weeks to live. And when you contextualize it that way, it makes a really big difference. Seneca said, "We don't grow older, we give every moment to death." I think it's very true. So that brings us, both of these really bring us to live one moment at a time, a concept that I think is very familiar in Phish lingo and Phish words. Excuse me. So when we talk about live one moment at a time, I really think about positive psychology, the scientific study of happiness, and the way that this allows us to savor the present moment. So savoring has been shown to increase our sense of well-being. When we live in the moment, when we appreciate that moment, we even, it sounds a little silly, but reflect on the fact that we're in that moment and come to understand it, feel our presence there. We increase our sense of well-being because we also remember it in order to reflect on it. We bank the quality of those memories. It's almost an investment in the future. And the practice I want to recommend that perhaps many of us are already doing is meditation. There are lots of forms of meditation that teach us to live in the moment. I'm personally partial to Vipassana meditation. I recommend it highly. Paige and Mike, as well as Jerry Seinfeld and my mom, all subscribe to Transcendental meditation, very effective. There are apps that can help you get started with this. You can even just walk alone in nature. The idea is to just not pick up your phone every single time you are compelled, but really be wherever you actually are. As Phish tells us, please clear your mind. So next we bring ourselves to love fate, amor fati. I find that this is one of the most difficult for people to be comfortable with. It has the highest objection level. And I think that's because it can often feel like resignation and just accepting a doomed future, which for many people says, do I just accept injustice? Do I accept the terrible things that are happening in this world? And that's not the idea at all. Amor fati is about looking backwards, in a sense, and accepting everything that has happened up to this point. It cannot be changed. So learn to love it exactly the way it is. A practice here, something that helps us learn to love everything that has already happened, is benefit finding. This one also comes to us from positive psychology, but also, of course, the Stoics. And Epictetus, who was himself a slave for the first 30 years of his life, and then one of the most sought-after philosophers in the world, said, no matter what you do to me, I will turn absolutely everything to my advantage. And even in the most horrible of circumstances, there are always lessons we can learn, or there are always opportunities to practice our virtues. And we'll talk about what some of that looks like shortly. I think that Phish pushes this idea even farther than the Stoics. Beyond loving fate, they say, I always wanted it this way. And I think that this is a profound concept that really changes the way we function with our past and what's happened, to always have wanted things to be this way. So another practice I want to offer you comes from Epictetus. And he said, whenever you're making a plan, make that plan. You can bullet it, right? But the last line of that plan should be to say to yourself, no matter what happens, I always want to keep my will in line with nature. Build that into your plan. What he means is to say to yourself, no matter what happens, want it to be exactly how it was. So that if your plan doesn't go to plan, you can say to yourself, oh, but wait, part of my plan was to be cool about that, to be chill about it, to not worry. I built it right into the plan. And this is how I interpret the very last line of the Gamehenge saga as written in Trey's thesis. The very last line is, from the top of the mountain, Iculus looked down on all that went on below him, and he smiled. And I think when we hear the Gamehenge saga and we understand it as a situation that went from tyranny to tyranny, it can be very hard to understand how the philosopher, prophet, demigod is smiling on the situation. But I think that's exactly it. Amor fati. I always wanted it this way. At that point, he can't do anything about it but practice his virtues and learn his lessons. So our last foundational idea is some things are out of my control. And I'm going to read to you from Epictetus. We are responsible for some things, and others we are not. The former include our judgment, our impulse, our desire, aversion, and our mental faculties in general. The latter include the body, material possessions, our reputation, status, in a word, anything not in our power to control. The former are naturally free, unconstrained, and unimpeded, while the latter are frail, inferior, subject to restraint, and none of our affair. So, in short, what's in our control is our impressions of the world. Nothing I see can be taken from me. Our attitude, our thoughts, our actions, and behavior. What's not in our control is literally everything else. It's not in our control. The conclusion, don't worry about anything that's not in your control. Epictetus says, be indifferent to everything beyond our control, the good and the bad. Again, this gets into dicey water when it comes to just accepting injustice, but that's not the message that's going on here. We can't get too deep into every bit of it today. And I've got two practices to offer you here. So practice number one is to start testing every impression that comes your way. Every interaction you have with the world, you have an impression of that thing. And start asking yourself, is this in my control? Is it in the list of things in my control? Or isn't it? And obviously, if it's not, learn to let it go. And when I say let it go, I don't mean accept that it's going to be that way forever. I mean, don't let yourself be ruled by the emotions that come up in reaction to it. The second practice is to set goals in your control. So, for instance, a bad goal for me today would have been to get everyone here to go out and read a copy of Epictetus's Discourses, as happy as that would make me. But a good goal would be to faithfully represent what Stoicism has to offer in the context of Phish, and to do it in under 30 minutes. So, through these foundational ideas, let's move on to the virtues. So virtues are the characteristics we seek to practice and demonstrate, and their execution is our benchmark of goodness. We must know what virtues we want to live by in order to live a good life. And there are other virtues than the ones I've put here today, but these are the ones that I see as overlapping between Phish and Stoicism. So our first virtue is courage. So courage is foundational. Nothing really happens without it. And like all the virtues, it must be demonstrated at every available opportunity. It's unlikely that we're going to spend a life being cowards, not standing up to injustice or something we see that is unacceptable, and then suddenly one day just be courageous. That's a Hollywood movie. That's not reality. In reality, we have to practice, and we practice by responding to even the smallest nervousness gentleness, with courage. Musonius Rufus, who was exiled 3 times in his life, said, "The person who wants to be good must not only learn the lessons which pertain to virtue, but train themselves to follow them eagerly and rigorously." Our next virtue is resilience. Resilience is my favorite of the virtues. Fortitude, tenacity, pressing through difficulty, and not just that, but with equanimity. Unrelenting, undeterred, yet unprovoked. And the practice that I want to offer you is best summarized in the phrase, "The obstacle is the way." So I'm going to read that second quote on the Stoicism side from Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And to me, this is Phish's light. Obstacles are stepping stones that guide us to our goals. Like Seneca says, it's a lot more powerful in verse than prose. Even consider Colonel Forbin climbing the mountain in search of Iculus, and in some tellings that mountain literally transforming into Iculus, his face coming out of the mountain. The obstacle is actually the way. And this is another one that's hard. There's not a lot of objection to the concept, but it's hard. You have to practice. When you are facing those obstacles in your life, don't try to go around them. Don't try to run away from them. Reimagine them as the actual path forward. The results are remarkable. So our next virtue is discipline. We've already talked about the larger concept of control. Discipline is self-control or temperance. Now that's not abstention necessarily, unless that's the boundary that you draw for yourself. But this is about protecting what's important. Keep what's important. Understanding your limits. Seneca, from his essay, titled literally, "On the Happy Life," says, "The highest good is found in the very act of choosing it. And when the mind has finished its course and surrounded itself by its own boundaries, the highest good has been perfected and it requires nothing more." This to me is again from light. Fences are filters that purify our souls. This is about deciding in advance and erecting the fences that filter out what we don't want in our lives and protecting what we do. It's about making conscious choices in advance. Consider Trey and substances and the active choices that he's made, the fences he's built around his life, his behavior, and what's important to him. And we must do the same. We must identify to us what's important. Is it family, work, passion projects, hiking, your morning exercise routine? It doesn't matter what it is, but we have to build fences. Self-control is most essential for every human being, Musonius Rufus tells us. That brings us to the virtue of wisdom, which is, in essence, the helping friendly book. All the wisdom in the universe, a tree of knowledge in your soul will grow. To learn, to study, to keep an open mind. Seneca says, "No one can lead a happy life, or even one that is bearable, without the pursuit of wisdom. The perfection of wisdom is what makes the happy life." What is the truth? What is the faithful, lasting proof? What is the central theme to this everlasting spoof? There were so many wonderful Phish quotes about wisdom. You can't pare them down fast enough to get on a slide. And the practice here is to keep doing what you're doing. This weekend has been amazing. I never imagined everything that I would learn and get an opportunity to think about here. So just keep it up. Keep this discipline going. My God. Our last virtue that we're going to take a look at is oikiosis, kindness and justice, an affinity for our fellow human being. It is our obligation, our duty to be good to others. We heard some really wonderful ways this weekend at the equity panel that we can start doing that in the context of Phish, but this needs to be in the context of everything. So I do think that the Stoics would use the word justice more. I think kindness suits a Phish environment better, but Marcus Aurelius draws these two quite close. He said, "You might see what the life of the good person is like, someone content with what nature assigns them and satisfied with being just and kind." So our practice here also comes from positive psychology. When someone is unkind to you, work to come up with all the reasons that this could be. What is happening in that person's life that has made them unkind in this moment? This has been shown to breed sympathy. And then your next move is to be kind to them regardless. Marcus Aurelius also asks himself, the story of your life is done. How many unkind people have you been kind to? And I would be remiss if I didn't add the following. So when I told my 3-year-old that I was going to mention him when I came here to give this talk, he said, "That's okay, Daddy, but please tell them I'm kind." So I had to share that for him. All right, so all of this brings us to the results. When we practice these ideas and these virtues, the results are amazing. As Phish said, once we listen to them, we step up into the next realm of living, a higher realm, in peace and tranquility, with all of our worldly problems left behind. Love, unity, happiness. And this Epictetus quote never ceases to remind me of Phish. You happen upon a crowd, call it a sporting event, a festival or celebration, and try to keep holiday with the people. What could better please a person who loves his fellows than the sight of them in numbers? So, love. There's love between two people, and there's love for humanity at large. I believe that the first often teaches us the second, and it's the second that brings us to a larger understanding of sympathia, of unified harmony. This is about the entire cosmos as a sentient, living entity in which all things are interconnected, and in the words of the Stoics, guided by the Logos. So the Logos might be a little bit far out, unfamiliar, and uncomfortable when I described it earlier, and I think that's totally fine. It doesn't really do it for me either, even though I get what they're after. I like to think more in Phish terms. Think about songs like Soul Planet, Set Your Soul Free, Rise, Come Together, More, or even The Vibration of Life, I think really captures this nicely. I'm not telling you to believe in any of this, souls or the Logos or any of it. The only place I'm at is that there must be something more than this. You can hear and you can feel the ideas in both, I think, Stoicism and Phish. And I think that that feeling and that understanding is part of why many of us go to shows. So all of that brings us back to the practical part of this philosophy, with the clear goal of happiness. So here's Seneca from On the Happy Life. It is the wish of all people to live happily, but when it comes to seeing clearly what it is that makes life happy, they grope for the light. But Phish is shining that light. They are giving us the way. In Joy, they literally tell us, we want you to be happy. And then they spend night after night playing for us and showing us and telling us how. So all of these practices, attitudes, ideas, thoughts, feelings, they're all meant to provide us with happiness, serenity, tranquility, and equanimity. Or, as Phish puts it, things, thoughts, feelings, love, hate, war, hunger, salvation, happiness, flowers, philosophy. Philosophy that can make you live today. Serenity and tranquility that arise from knowing you're leading a good life. And I believe that Stoicism and Phish both bring us to this same place and show us how. So there are many ideas and practices we didn't have time for, and I think that each of these works deserves 100 careful reads. I hope some of the techniques I shared resonated with you and that you'll try them. And if you found something that did and you want to study more, I'm releasing a book that digs in considerably deeper than we had time for today. You can sign up to be notified when it's released. You can see it's fishphilosophy.net, and I realized after this weekend it should be a little itty-bitty tiny piece of fishphilosophy.net, but that's hard to type. If you want to email me for the quote slides, I'm also happy to share those. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Gotta have some water. Ever try to type a password in with your caps lock on? Okay. My name is Ben, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here, so thanks for having me. I'm going to share a little bit of my story. And some, yeah, I didn't mean for you to do that. I want to talk about fish as a gift. Fish is a gift, and I don't think anybody here is going to argue with that. But I want to go deep on that notion of a gift. The truth first dawned on me at Alpine Valley in the far west lot. It was my first show, and when I first stepped out, I was hiding, and I had learned how to hide in plain sight really well. I had that pain in my soul, a hole in my heart, and the smile could cover that. My t-shirt covered bruises and abrasions underneath from years, my whole entire childhood being severely abused at home, and all in the name of Jesus, God, the Bible. So I was pretty confused and wrecked as a kid, as a high schooler when I first went up. Fish offered me a saving gift and welcomed me into a different kind of world. Mental shackles started to break. A sense of worthlessness changed into at least the beginnings of a sense of acceptance. I definitely saw something I wanted to try. By the end of the show, I was foggy and groggy, and I had accidentally lost my crew in the sea of 40,000 people trying to mountain climb Alpine's Hill. And a fellow twice my age saw me stumbling, and he helped me to my car. He walked out with me. Having somebody walk to your car with you is not usually a life-changing event. Most events aren't planned, though, and it was that way for me. The act of showing attention to me and kindness, which we've just talked about, it was a saving gift. It said that the bruises under my shirt, which said, "You're worthless," his gift said, "You might be worth something." You want me to do anything with the mic to adjust with we're good, just rock and roll, all right. Home for me was 10 miles away at Burlington, Wisconsin, so I lived right by Alpine my whole growing up. I worked on the ski hill there in the winters. The next morning, all I wanted was some way to return. So fish is a gift, but we ask, what is a gift really? really getting into the heart of what does it mean? How would you define a gift? So back up a little bit and say, let's say you're going to give a gift at a charity banquet. You pay $500 to be at this table. Later on, you're going to write it off as a charitable gift in your taxes. The IRS doesn't let you take the full $500 deduction. Why? Well, you received a meal. So you got to deduct the value of the meal, because in our culture and even our law, for it to be a gift, it has to have a certain essence to it, right? And if I give you something and I want something back from you, it's a little less of a gift in our mind. So that's how we conceive of it. I don't think that's how a gift, I think there's a much deeper way to understand gift. And you might say, okay, so what? We're doing fine with our own word gift. We can invest it with whatever meaning we want. And that's fair. But I'm a Bible scholar, and I did this super deep dive for a long time into the first century context from which the New Testament emerges, and tried to get my head around how do these folks use and think of the word gift. Interestingly, we, in our English translations of the Bible, translate the Greek word for gift as grace. So there's this connection between gift and grace, and I wanted to really explore that. The concept of a gift or a grace would be the central thematic idea and word in the New Testament for salvation. And that might raise some heartbeats when you hear that word, so I want to clarify that term carefully. The pop church for a very long time has talked about salvation through terms of like escaping here to go to kind of a utopian paradise where angels are blowing horns and it's golden and we do something. The New Testament writers did not write with that concept of salvation. It was a fullness of human healing and a return to peacefulness throughout the entire world, the physical world with physical bodies and us. So salvation was about healing, and the central theme was gift or grace. So I want to say that Phish is a true gift, and I want to say it's a true grace, but in our world today, those words have taken on a different meaning. I don't think that's necessarily bad, although I'll argue it's limited. So how do you get back at these original meanings and the ways that folks were using them back in the day? I'll give a brief note about my research method here. I take the approach of critical realism. So essentially, that's pairing a disciplined pursuit of knowledge with a healthy skepticism that you can even do that. And so you're working in the realm of probabilities. I wouldn't come to a conclusion or an argument where I say, this is for sure what they meant. Instead, you survey all of the literature of this area in time that you're looking at, and you say, well, how from all of these texts can we derive some sort of understanding of how they use these words? So the paper that I'd worked on goes real deep at this point. I won't walk you through all of the nuances. If you'd like to read it, let me know, and I'd be happy to give it to you. And essentially trace the background and how these classic authors were using the word. So we start with Hesiod. We're in 750 to 650 BCE, around the time of Homer, old school Homer. Hesiod's a poet as well, and in his poetry, you can read about gift giving, and other scholars will say it really captures the way that the Mediterranean world for centuries was understanding what gifts were. Here's 4 themes. 1, gifts go to those who are worthy. Gifts are for friends and neighbors and should be given with a view to receive something back. After receiving a gift, one ought to reciprocate by offering a gift in return. And then when all of this happens, that puts both parties into a mutual debt and benefit. We owe one another and we benefit from one another. By reciprocating that gift, then you will have a friend in time of need, Hesiod says. Notice that the big theme in gift giving, it's not like an obligation to bring somebody a gift at a social celebration. It's about creating this social bond. a back and forth reciprocating. Okay, roll out to Aristotle, or several hundred years later, around the 4th century BCE. Aristotle advances these themes with an allegorical picture of the 3 graces: the giver, the receiver, and the reciprocator. Each of these are part of the essence of a gift being fully manifested, as it were. So if I give somebody a gift and they don't receive it, all of the goodness bound up with that act doesn't really happen. And then if they don't reciprocate it, then the goal of the gift giving hasn't really happened. So Aristotle advances that same idea. And then I also did a lot of work in Seneca, 1st century philosopher, Stoic philosopher Lucius and Gnaeus Seneca. And what I looked at was called de principis, or on benefits. De beneficis. Stéphane Joubert says that de beneficis, or on benefits, is the most detailed work on benefit exchange in the Greco-Roman world. And John Barclay, he's a New Testament scholar, he did a massive study on this and helped me see several key themes. I'll outline 4 of them here in Seneca's writing on gift giving and receiving. So the first one that Seneca, you see it in lots of his writing, is the worthiness of the recipient. Now here's a place where I got to pause for a second and zoom into our modern word grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch. That's an interesting word there, and that's the kind of language I grew up with. Grace is for folks who are unworthy. But I didn't see that in any of these ancient texts. It was the literal exact opposite. And what happened was, we will see here, one of the essences of a gift is incongruity. You're giving a gift not because of how somebody has earned it or paid for it. You're just giving a generosity. But by saying unmerited favor, and that's how the Pop Church has taught grace for at least since the Protestant Reformation, we developed a sense of unmerited meaning unworthy. When my toddler needs breakfast and I give him breakfast, he certainly hasn't earned it. He's not paying any part of the mortgage. He's done very little other than make things difficult for my life, right? So it's unmerited, yes, but he's worth it. He's my beloved. He's worthy of receiving and giving this good gift to. So this is a place that really helped me see, unmerited favor is still very much a part of gift giving, but that does not make the recipient unworthy, quite the opposite. In fact, when somebody gives you a gift, aren't they saying you're worth it? And doesn't that do something to you? The other one is the necessity of reciprocation. We've seen that already, and that'll continue. A gift needs to be reciprocated. The other is the goodness of the gift. Seneca really anchored in on this idea of it's not a gift unless it's actually good. And he differentiates between I'm giving something because you want it. So that doesn't necessarily make it a gift. My boy might want M&Ms for breakfast, and I'm going to say to him, let's not. It would satisfy him if I gave him M&Ms, but it wouldn't be a gift, because that dose of refined sugar in the morning is not going to help him. A good gift would be an omelet and some toast. I'd want some coffee. Another big theme in Seneca's writing is the intent behind the giving. It's not so much the value of the gift itself, like, oh, I got something so valuable. It's what it reveals about the person who's giving it. It reveals a love, it reveals a care, it reveals something that they're saying to you. Seneca promotes an ethic of giving as an intrinsically rewarding experience. And in this, he's departing from, he's nuancing or evolving from the ancient context before him. there had become a development of practice where, because gifts and receiving and giving and receiving was basically the way you survived and lived in a patron-benefactor world, people would sometimes use gift giving hostilely. I give you a gift, and now you owe me. And Seneca wants to push that a little bit further and say, no, the giving act in and of itself is intrinsically good, not what I get out of it. So he's moving people to think of gift differently. Okay. From Seneca, and we looked at some Greek writers, I'm studying the New Testament. These are Jewish authors in the first century. So I had to do a deep dive into the Jewish texts that they would also be reading in this day. And there's lots of them. I got into the Septuagint, or the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible in their day. A lot of the New Testament writers are quoting out of it. There's a lot to say there, but in the Old Testament, grace and salvation are tightly tied to the character of the Creator, the divine, or God. And they're tied to the language of His graciousness, or of God's loving kindness, His chen, or hesed. So when they're talking about being saved, it is directly tied to the character and nature and will of the God. The New Testament writers don't deny or reject any of that, but they say, okay, that's good, but how? What's maybe the mechanics or the method? And now when you read about salvation in the New Testament, it's always focused on grace or gift. The Greek word charis, from which we get charisma. So they're not diverting from, but they're saying maybe it's this compassionate character built into all of creation by God, but here's how it works. Here's how we're actually lifted up. It's through the exchange of gift. And don't just think material gift. That fellow who helped me out of Alpine didn't give me anything I kept in my pocket. I'm still talking about it here, though. It was a huge gift. Move from there to Philo, Pseudo-Philo, Ben Sira, Josephus, a first century historian, a few of the Dead Sea Scrolls, lots of sifting at this part of the project, lots of different perspectives, and there is no single perspective in Judaism ever. It's always, the whole idea is disputing and debating and figuring it out. Even still, there was this sense in Seneca and in the Jewish authors of wanting to keep the notion of reciprocity. We need to return the favor, as it were. But they divert strongly from any kind of like obligatory or using it to enslave or any kind of hostile use of gift giving. So they're changing from the culture around them in a marked way. This all lands on a few essential. This is really key. If you could sum it all up, their notion of giving gifts would, if you're receiving it, trusting that it's real, you're going to end up seeing people not as competitors anymore, but as companions. And I think we want to bring a few companions on this ride. That was what I needed when I was young, a high schooler going to school, going to the first show. I was so harmed and broken. When you're treated with abuse and condescension your whole life, you end up isolated in thinking that you wouldn't have, nobody who's smart would even want to hang out with you. What it is then to develop friendships, companions. Okay, so this all lands on, we might say, a few essential or properly basic perfections of the idea of grace. Again, John Barclay, he's done a huge study in this. It's been groundbreaking in the New Testament studies world. Now apparently in the Phish Studies world as well. So that's pretty exciting. It has really changed the whole landscape of New Testament studies because it's nothing like it has been done since him. Okay, so he summers it into these 6 perfections. I'll share 4. And we've already talked about them. As I share them, think about your own experience with Phish and how they fit. The first one, so the answer to the question, what is a gift? The first one he would say is, it's super abundant. Okay? The more permanent, the greater the magnitude, the more significant, the better. A real gift is super abundant. Bum me a smoke. That's a good gift. Give me a truck. That's a much more abundant gift. Help me to my car on a night that began with suicidal ideation. And then at the end of the night, I've got a wave of hope. That's a super abundant gift. That has lasted for, we're almost on 30 years now since that moment. It was a big deal. Second one is singularity. Here the concept is identified when the giver gives with one singular intent. It's not just our intent. All of our intent is for your delight. It's this sense of giving for your well-being, for your shalom, for your peacefulness, not giving to get something from you. In his biography on Phish, Parke Purba says, Trey would often make reference to intentions in our conversations. It all boiled down to gauging and ensuring their purity, the band's purity of intent. In my estimation, their intentions have been unimpeachable, and the creative effort expended by them extraordinary. No other motives. Our intent is all for you. We pick that up as we hang with Phish. Incongruity. We've mentioned this one already with the notion of unmerited favor. This one was almost offensive in the ancient world because of that sense of worthiness. You don't give good things to rotten people. Incongruity says, maybe let's hold off on categorizing people as rotten too quickly. Maybe the intrinsic value of generosity toward others without sizing them up or seeing what they're going to do for you, that's where we actually move out of the cycles of harm that keep hurting humanity for centuries. So, incongruity, giving favor to somebody who, even though they haven't earned it or deserved it, that's a major part of at least the concept of grace in the New Testament as the New Testament authors are using it. It's about helping the person who is actually not that awesome to you because the gift, the benefit in itself, that's so good. Here's Seneca from the 1st century. The sacrilege and indifference to religion of some men does not prevent even the immortal gods from continuing to shower their benefits upon us. For they act according to their divine nature, and they help all alike. Among them even those who so ill appreciate their bounty. Let us take them for our guides. As far as the weakness of our mortal nature permits, let us bestow benefits, not put them out with selfish interest. So the gods give good things to humans, good and bad alike. This goes back to the Hebrew Bible. God puts rain out on everybody, mercifully, not partially. Let's take that as a guide and give simply for the well-being of the other, not just to get something in return. Okay, that's the third one. The last one is efficacy or effectiveness. This one's about the results. Does the gift actually achieve what the giver intended? I think lots of commercial music intends to sell records by giving folks what they want. That was for me. I had my Pearl Jam and Nirvana tapes. I had to hide them in my ceiling tiles because if my mom found me while listening to them, I would receive punishments. But I wanted that. I would make tapes off the radio because I wanted to have whatever everybody was listening to. But Phish set out and gave me something much more useful than just scratching that itch. In some way, I was wanting M&Ms for breakfast. And Phish gave me an omelet and toast and some coffee. Here's some words from Paige from the Long May They Run podcast by Dean Budnick. When the band started in the 80s and the music became very canned and synthetic and hinged on MTV videos, and then into the 90s, where the biggest bands have lots of angst that they were expressing, And often the singer had some kind of sex idol or some kind of object or etc. We didn't have any of that going on for us, Paige says. We thought the collective consciousness was a better way to go and more enjoyable. That's actually not Paige, that's Mike. But that is, that is the mindset of loving others, receiving from them, and building a collective, the thing that we've said. What is it that we're all chasing? A shared, intimate, safe space for music, for human validation. That's a gift. So let's braid these all together with Phish. The first century world gives a vibrant picture of grace as life-giving, sharing, forgiving, bonding. That's saving grace. It's a gift that's given to help another, not seeking a return. But when it's properly received, the return of gratefulness happens. The social bond forms. Phish's approach with tapers is a really good example of this philosophy or this ethos. Shelley Culbertson, again from the Long May They Run podcast, she was around for the early days of Usenet. She talks about tape trading culture this way. It helped to break down the barriers between the audience and create a collective sense of involvement. That's social bonding right there, which I think is at the core of how the foundation of the audience was built. Obviously, the audience was also built because they're a phenomenal band and they're amazing musicians and people enjoying their music because it's wonderful music. But at the same time, there was a lot of forces that supported the sense of belonging in the community, and it's wonderful how long that has persisted, she says. When I was broken and lost, I didn't need a passive escape. I mean, that was nice, and I had plenty of those, but that wasn't the good gift that I needed. I needed active renewal. I needed healing. After being on tour for a while, Nathan Rabin, he's the head writer for the AV Club and the Onion's entertainment section. He writes this about his own experience. Phish and their fans had given a neurotic cynic the most precious gift of all. The ability to live in the moment instead of lamenting the past I couldn't change or fixating on the future that filled me with unshakable dread. We heard that same idea in Jay's presentation just now. So by the grace of Phish, which we know means the whole thing, not just the band, but by the grace of Phish, healing can happen. I've been a pastor in churches for a very long time. I have never received tangible grace in any measure compared to what I have with this community. I think the pop church right now is collapsing and crumbling, and for good reason. And I could talk all day long about that. But I don't say that as a spectator. I've been in it and tried to be in it and been harmed by it. This place has brought me so much love and healing. It all makes me want to give, to be gracious. Think of the generative spirit surrounding us right now. The whole conference is about receiving a gift and then giving the gift to others in our own way with our own uniqueness. And I love how we each receive and then share and give. There's a little pub in Portland, Tomorrow's Verse, and TJ has received, you guys, okay, there we go. And TJ has received this gift from Phish and put up a little tap room, and we'll play live shows there, and it's a community hub, and it's just beautiful to be a part of it. It's a super abundant gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving. And it's given with pure intent, and that synergy heals and restores, and it offers us a new way and a new kind of life born out of the old. It's different, moving closer toward love and light, I suppose. I think that what we have loved most about Phish, the best memories, the best experiences, the stuff that really makes it worth it, I think those have been tangible experiences of receiving and reciprocating the divine gift. They're tangible, saving moments of grace. So by the grace of Phish, I wish you well. Thank you, Phish, and thank you.
Thank you all for these extremely profound and thought-provoking presentations. Because these were all super abundant presentations, we have very short amount of time for questions. So microphone there, here, we can spend 5 minutes maybe.
First of all, those were fantastic, all three of you. So thank you for that gift. I think I have two questions, depending on how fast you guys answered. First, for Ben, you talked about reciprocity, right? And about how it's important to give back. Now, I think, it's pretty immediately evident to me that, like when Phish gives us the gift, when Phish the band, not the whole thing, Phish the band gives us the gift just like energy. They give us energy, but we give the energy back. And so I can see that. My question is, the guy that walked you to the car gave you such a gift. In that situation, what would you say was the reciprocity?
The reciprocity, this was brought up a lot, like how could I ever return such a favor? And the philosophers we looked at, or I did in this paper, they brought that same thing up. Because if you had a big gift to somebody, they could never pay you back, and now you kind of owned them. So they switched it, they moved it and said reciprocity can be, and actually in its purest form, is straight up grateful. To be grateful. And you know what that's like when somebody we've all been there, when somebody receives the gift of Phish and they're not grateful, something is missed. And I'm not saying they're bad or wrong or something, but the gift part of it, the healing part, is missed in that sense. So a gratefulness. And then, I don't know, and I don't even know the fellow's name. I wouldn't recognize him if I ever saw him again. But there was a sense of reciprocity being involved with using the gift as the way it was intended. I never would have put this together as a high schooler, but looking back on it now, he intended to give me life and kindness so that I would probably do the same. And if I can use the gift that way, I'm actually reciprocating.
Yeah, I was going to say, in some way, you giving the speech today was, in
a way, yeah. But there we are. Yeah.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, please.
Maybe from a Jewish perspective?
Yeah.
There's a Jewish saying, mitzvah gereret mitzvah. A moral imperative brings another moral imperative. And there's another saying, related, that the reward of mitzvah is another mitzvah. Yeah. But what exactly does that mean? And the way I understand that is the reward of a mitzvah is that you just got to do a mitzvah, and that's what we're here for. So by doing that, you gave an opportunity for that person to do a mitzvah to you and fully actualize his own self. And that's why there's also the concept that, when you have a give and receive relationship in Judaism, they say the giver actually, in some ways, gets even more than the receiver, because he has the opportunity to fulfill his purpose and his mission thereof. Although,
and that purpose you talk about as and that purpose, if it is part of what it means to be a human, then you're just living into who you already are. That's a cool thought.
Yeah, very much. And then my follow-up is for Jay. So I loved how you took the quotes and you put them side by side, and I thought that you did such some of them were really profound and really just spot on. Some of the some of the narration stuff that Trey gives, though, the question is it comes across to me as a lot of that's in jest. Can you speak to that? Like when he says read the fucking book, to me it's a way of him saying, like, the lyrics, I definitely think that the message embedded in them is the message we are intended to receive. And I agree with you, like when you had the two side by side, there's it's pretty evident. But then for something like Exegesis that's meant to be humorous, I wonder if it's almost not mocking, but not in a way that's denying, but just sort of in a way that's entertaining. Here's our beliefs, here's our tenets, we have it all in our lyrics, but read the fucking book,
Yeah, I totally hear you. This is on? Yes. I hear you. I think that Phish is great. There was a presentation, I think it was yesterday, about humor, gags, all of this, and I think it did a great job being like, are we fully in on the joke or are we not fully in on the joke? And I think that Phish does this to us with a lot of stuff. I mean, there's mock song, and you know, they're basically saying in mock song, don't take us too seriously. So like, you got to take it all with a grain of salt, because they're human and they're not telling us we're gods and we're delivering you the real sacred word. They're saying, this is our experience. This is the wisdom we've taken out of it. This is everything that we can do to like share that with you. And you know, we can. It was also said, I think in that same presentation, take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And I think that they're the best at that. I remember there was this one July 4th show where they do narration and start saying something like, the whole history of America is this alternate history is deeply embedded in all of our lyrics. We've been telling you, but you're just not listening, you know? And here it finally is. And I just take that to be like exactly this, that like, yeah, it's all in there, guys. Like, just listen up, but like, what are you listening for? This is my reductionist lens of what I'm listening for, and I just take all of that iculous narration of them saying like, yeah, it's all in there somewhere, but like, you know, also have fun with it.
Also, we can be ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly, well, exactly. It's all part of it. That's life, you know?
Well, thank all three of you once again, for sure.
And just to add on to your point, who is it who delivers the Helping Friendly book? The Mockingbird. Yeah.
One final question.
Thank you guys.
And Oren, thank you. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful lunch. See ya.